early box office predictions aren't an exact science, but they do give you kind of an indicator about what to expect with the movie. I mean, at least somewhat in the ballpark. And right now, Blue Beetle is set to be released in about a month, and things are looking pretty bad for it. So let's jump into this article from Bounding Into Comics. Blue Beetle early box office predictions are a complete and utter disaster for Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, James Gunn, and their DC universe. So this is talking about the results that came out from Box Office Pro, which is a site that kind of predicts what they expect movies to be, and it makes their long-term predictions, and then it also adjusts those as time goes on. A lot of it comes down to trends and social media chatter around the movie, so take it with a grain of salt, but this is kind of interesting right now. Box Office Pro predicts the film will only bring in between 12 million and 17 million in its opening domestic weekend. The outlet further notes the film will only gross between 27 million and 55 million in its entire theatrical run. Now, keep in mind that is just domestic, and if you actually go into the Box Office Pro right now, close that out, and you can actually see it kind of breaks down a little bit more. So yeah, you see right here the opening weekend with the domestic runs, and it does kind of explain why it thinks there's a modest strength in the DC brand. I really doubt that. I mean, if you go by their last movies, there's not much strength. There's an appeal to a character of his ethnicity, so okay. But the cons it lists as like there's a lot of other comic book movies and the novelty is kind of wearing off, and there's a lot of competition at this time of the year, especially with movies kind of catering to that demographic and action movies like The Meg 2 and Gran Turismo. So there's a lot working against it, but just the fact that DC has been having a lot of terrible movies lately, and this article from Bounding Into Comics further goes into that. So The Flash, that opened up with 55 million. Keep in mind, this is saying 12 to 17 million. The Flash opened up to 55 million and only got 107 million domestically. Shazam! Fury of the Gods, 30 million with 57 million domestically, and Black Adam, 67 million and 168 million domestically. And keep in mind, all these movies lost money for DC and Warner Brothers. Now, this is a little bit different because Blue Beetle didn't have the budget of these movies. Like The Flash's budget was around 300 million that they're willing to report, which is probably much higher. This one, it's around 120 million, but still, on a conservative note, it needs to make around $300 million to break even. Probably closer to the 350 range, but let's go by this 300 million. It says that means with these predictions, it needs to make another $245 million internationally to break even, and Flash only made 160 million, Shazam 74.5, and Black Adam 223.1. So as you can see, this movie is basically dead on arrival, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that people don't know what to make of this. James Gunn has since come out and talked about whether this is part of the shared universe that he plans coming forward. And there's this article right here talking about an Instagram post. He was answering a question about whether Blue Beetle is a part of his DCEU coming forward. This is his response. Yes, Blue Beetle and a handful of other characters will continue on in the DCEU, even though the first DC Studios movie is Superman Legacy. So this is just his way of saying, I don't know. Because honestly, if this movie was just going crazy and made over $1 billion, then yes, they're going to bring it back. But the fact of the matter is, if the movie is just tanking, he has an excuse to just cut loose on it. And that's probably what he's going to do with Flash. And that's likely what's going to happen with this. And because people aren't expecting this to be in part of the DCEU in the future, a lot of people are wondering, well, what's the point of getting invested in this type of a movie and this character when this is just going to be a one-off thing? Not saying that a one-off thing isn't good thing or can't work every now and then. I mean, we used to have that all the time before the MCU kind of became what it is. But now people are kind of coming to expect these comic book movies because they're going to build up to something else and they're going to stack with other characters and have their team up movies and things like that. But when no one's expecting it from this, no one's really excited to see it because it's just a one-off thing for a character that no one knows, no one really cares about, and that's going to be the end of it. And now you're also getting the director kind of trying to say like, no, Blue Beetle is part of the new DCEU. I mean, he hasn't really said that entirely because he's kind of been iffy about it because, like I said, James Gunn isn't sure whether it's going to fit in there. It all depends on the success, and right now it's looking like it's going to be terrible, and the director of this kind of knows it, so he's trying to still push people towards it because they want this movie to succeed. James Gunn wants this movie to succeed, but him coming in when they had all these movies in the pipeline was just kind of the worst thing that Warner Brothers could have done because it really just set the tone that everything moving forward is not important, and that includes Aquaman coming out in another couple months. So let's wait and see what happens with that, but I'm not expecting much. I mean, Flash was their biggest bomb. This obviously isn't going to be that because it didn't have the budget of Flash, but it's going to be another bomb, and it's just a long list of them, and let's see what happens with Aquaman. But let me know what you think about all this in the comments, and if you liked the video, make sure you click the like button, share the video out there, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.